Hi, friends and family,
Welcome to Hope After Addiction
with your hosts, Katie Comer
and Chelsea McLeod.
Hi, welcome to Hope After Addiction. We are so happy that you have joined us today. How are you, friends?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. We just got back from a cruise. I think I
Yes.
mentioned it in one of our earlier episodes, but we were getting ready to go on a cruise, and now I'm back from the cruise, and it was so fun.
So sweet. And the kids, were they so surprised?
Yes, so we surprised them. We were going to wait till the morning of.
Yeah.
But we told them the day before because I just couldn't help it. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I was like, by that time, I was like, we're for sure going.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to tell them. Part of me didn't want to tell them just because I was like, what if something happens? And you just never know. And then actually around that time was all these hurricanes.
That's right.
And I was like, it actually might not happen. So I was like, I'm definitely not going to tell them. And then like the day before, it was going to miss where we were going to be.
Yeah.
And so I knew for sure we were going. So I was like, we're just going to tell them.
Yeah.
They were so excited.
Did they sleep at all that night?
They did. Well, it's kind of like Christmas where they were like, I'm ready to go to bed. I want to wake up and go.
Yes.
And so it sometimes works like the better way where they're like so excited.
That's
So
true.
That's
That's so much fun.
I know. It was so fun.
Oh, yay. Yeah. I love that.
How was your week?
Memories. It's been good. Yeah.
Nothing new?
Just nothing too new. Just loving on babies. And then in that season.
I know. Yeah.
Kind of a slower season. Well, we did go back home. John turned 40.
Oh, that big 4-0.
So that was actually, that has been a bit of a milestone.
Yes, it is.
So it's been fun celebrating him.
Yeah. 40. Welcome to the club.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him.
Yep.
It ain't that bad.
No, it's the new 30s.
Yeah. That's what they say.
That's what they say.
So today we're so happy you've joined us. We're going to be talking a little bit about healing and, the idea that your healing time should look like everybody else's healing time. I feel like there's like, pressure to feel like, okay, you're fine now. My husband's out of rehab or my husband's in rehab or wherever it is, you feel like you should be at a certain place of healing. But the idea that healing takes your own length of time, like it's not anybody else's journey. It's your journey.
Yep.
And talking a little bit about our own testimonies in healing, maybe what helped us, but the idea that it's your own journey and it takes your own length of time and feeling content in your journey, I feel like is important. So we'll talk a little bit about healing.
Yeah. And it's important. You think about like any medical, I was thinking about this working with a client last night, just you have an injury, you have a surgery, like every person that's going to have that exact same surgery is going to heal completely different. Yeah. And it goes back to your past, your childhood, your experience, your wisdom, your relationship with the Lord. And everybody has a different time. And I wish there was like this arrival date that you have just arrived at healing, but it's not how it works, and even years after, I still have moments where I'm like, okay, I need to heal in this area or there's a little bit of bitterness here. Like I still need to heal in this area. And we had a counselor that we were seeing going through everything. And I remember she told us, she said, takes 3 years to where it's not all consuming. And I remember it used to frustrate John because he's like, I felt like she put a time frame on this, and what if it's supposed to be sooner, but you're holding on to that 3 years. And I really did find that to be pretty true. Not that healing happens in 3 years, but just that it's not all consuming. Because a lot of people ask us that, like, when are you going to stop thinking about it all the time? Like, when are we going to stop focusing on it and being so triggered? And so I encourage you by that, like 3 years is a counselor's time frame of it's going to get, and it gets better in those 3 years. But I can say at 3 years, it wasn't a all the time thought, but there's still no arrival to it. I had a weekend this weekend where some stuff kind of popped up and I'm like, okay, like there's some healing that needs to happen there.
Some people call them triggers or, just bitterness sometimes can creep up. Just the devil's really good about reminding in different areas, right?
Yeah, all the time.
And so there's definitely some going back to the Lord and say, change my heart, right? Change my heart where it needs to be changed, but help me address things that need to be addressed appropriately too.
Yeah.
So, because you still want to have that communication with your loved one about what you're feeling, but at the same time, just like asking the Lord what's appropriate to bring up versus what's just the devil,
Oh yeah.
right? And just it's hard to know sometimes
Yeah. Yeah.
the appropriate thing. But I do remember having that feeling of, I literally think I'm going to think about this every day for the rest of my life. And I just don't know if I can do it.
Every second of the day.
And I'm like, I don't know if I can live like this. And that was also the devil of like, can you stay in this relationship?
Yes.
Like, I do feel like there was that battle a little bit of, I don't know if I want to think about this every day.
Yes.
I don't know if I want this to be my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, you know, that's where different people came into my life of, what if you give him one more chance? And I'm like, I don't know if I want that, you know? And so, but then the Lord just spoke to me that one more chance. And so over time, and that was I was trying to think as you were saying that about the 3 years. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think healing was taking place in those 3 years, but then, I mean, I know it's daunting. I do feel like it's daunting time frame.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But there is hope. I think that that's what we can offer you, is that there is hope that it is not all consuming, but there is healing in that time too. And there's happiness, and there is forgiveness, and there is all the stuff that happens that's so freeing in those 3 years that you can grasp onto. But then after those 3 years, I mean, like I literally can tell you now that I literally don't ever think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I do in a sense of, because it's Adam's job.
Right. It's where you are. Yeah.
And you know, I speak to women, you know, at church or wherever it may be through the ministry. I do think about it, but I don't think about how it affected me as much. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Anymore.
Well, and I love the fact that you bring up the thought of like, I can't live this life and think about this all the time because of how painful it was, because I was the same way. And I'm like, I don't want to live this way, which meant ending my relationship.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't want to think like this all the time. And women that I work with, they're like, but I can't do this. But their thought, what they see right now is the thinking about this all the time. And so we encourage you to know that where you're at right now, we get that, but it does get better. It does get better. And one of the things just to encourage that I had written down, which you just brought up, is you can literally feel and be in that completely broken place, like right here, right now. But no, at the same time, you are healing. Even when you don't see it or feel it, you are healing. And so when it comes to our people that have lost loved ones and overdoses and all the things, divorce, whatever it may be, in that broken place that you're at or that you've been walking through, you are also healing. And I can look back, just like you said, in those years of the just intrusive thoughts and all the things, and see now that I was also healing at that time. I was gaining strength. I was gaining wisdom. I was gaining healing. And just encourage you that right now you probably feel stuck. You probably feel like you are literally, there's not one foot in front of the other whatsoever. But you are healing right now. You are walking in that. You are gaining that healing that God has for you. You know, you also have to come into agreement with it, but you're growing right here, right now where you are.
Yeah. And I think it's important to almost like step outside of your situation and look over your situation and pray over it. And say God's timing in my healing is perfect timing. And although I know that I would have wanted to heal in just a few weeks and be done with it and I forgive you and we are good and I don't ever think about it anymore. We're in a perfect relationship. Although that sounded a lot better, the journey that it took to get to the healing place is who made me today.
Yes.
And appreciating the journey in and of itself is your story. And it made Chelsea who she is. Those years of just crying out to the Lord, the years of me crying out to the Lord over Adam and our relationship, if you step outside of it and say, hey, that is what made me today. That is who made me today and who I am. And I can appreciate that now. So if you can like step outside of your situation a little bit and say, God's timing of my healing is going to be perfect for my story and my journey, that is growth.
Yeah.
For sure. Because when you're in the middle of it and you're in the trenches, is what we call it, in the trenches of it, it's so hard to recognize God's goodness and his timing is perfect. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, it talks about there's a time for every occasion and a time for every season. It says there is an occasion for everything and a time for every activity under heaven. And it goes on to list all the things, some of the things that we feel. You know, there's a time to weep and a time to laugh. There is a time to tear down, and there's a time to build. There's a time to kill, and there's a time to heal. You know, killing your spirit, killing your relationship, but there's also a time to heal. And God has ordained these certain occasions in your life to build you up to who you are and to who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And these occasions that we have. So, be encouraged by that.
Yeah.
That you're in this season, you're in that first part of it, but there's also the second part of it that God's goodness will show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's precious. And people have always said, and I'm sure you've all heard it, but time heals.
Yeah,
and
it does.
it does. And I used to get so mad at that phrase, but it truly does. That doesn't mean you're not going to have hiccups or speed bumps along the way. You know, I remember even with Papa, we were in, was it, Costco, like a year after he passed, and there was a piano, like, set up, a whole set. They were selling these beautiful pianos. Papa was a master pianist. And I just started bawling in Sam's. I'm like, what is happening? But it was just, I was healing. I had healed tremendously. Things had gotten easier. Missing him had gotten easier. But you're still going to have moments. But time truly does heal. And so know if today you're like, I can't do another day. Like, I can't get past this. Yeah. Time does heal. It does heal. And it will get... I think the pain eases, you know, you have to mourn, you have to grieve your seasons, grieve your people, grieve the relationships, mourn those, but time does heal. It just eases the ache a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I also think that we've got to be careful in your healing journey. And I kind of mentioned this at the very beginning, but not comparing your journey to somebody else's journey.
Yes.
Your journey is unique. And your healing journey is unique. So what might have taken Chelsea, and I would agree that it was actually several years to heal, where it was all consuming, and we're still healing. I mean, I think that everybody heals from everything. You know, it's always a process. Your journey is your journey. I mean, there's times where bitterness, you put us through this, or you did this, can creep back up. It's, you know, the devil's just really good about finding those little cracks and expanding it, kind of like a foundation where like he just expands it and makes it more of what it really is. And so I think it's just getting back to my point. I think it's very easy to compare your healing journey to somebody else's. And so even as we talk about it several years, you know, yours might look different, and we recognize that too. Yeah. But we say the 2 to 3 years to be encouraged that if you're in year 1 or 2 and you're like, I'm still really struggling, that's okay, right? Because we found that these 2 to 3 years is at a typical time where you're not always thinking about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it goes back deep, and we've talked about this. Katie and I have completely different backgrounds, and so maybe you struggle with trust from your childhood or whatever it may be, and then your loved one has completely broken trust. So it may take those a little bit longer to heal compared to the one that didn't have trust issues. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. One of the things I wanted to mention too, I think just to give you room and grace for yourself, but healing isn't about getting back to who you were. It's about kind of recreating the new you. And since it's happened, because I was talking to a wife the other night, like, we will never be the same person that we were. Ever. When we endure trauma or tragedy or these seasons, we'll never be the same. and we grow through it. We gain wisdom through it. We gain strength. We gain experience. And so I think so often in healing, we try and get back to that old person that we were. And you don't have to do that. The exciting part of healing and of going through these seasons is growing into who God has you to be, who he wants you to be. And so don't try and cling to what you used to be. Embrace the newness of your spirit and your heart and your hope. I mean, because ultimately it's the hope that you're given in these times. That I had a client yesterday, and the tragedy she has endured is just, it's beside me. And she is the most positive, joyful, happy person. And we got into a depth last night of just this, or yesterday. It's without those times, without that need for healing, like you wouldn't know God the way that we do if you run that way with him, you know, and that's where you also have the choice and the perspective to come alongside of him and be like, okay, I'm ready to let you take me on this journey. Because sometimes we have detours. Like God takes us on detours to bring us back to those places. It's like Joseph, he took through prison to give his biggest dream to him. And so we don't know. I mean, some of you literally may have prison in your life right now.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we don't know. But there are those detours in life, and it doesn't always take us back to who we were before. And so that's okay. It's okay. You're learning a new you. And I say that all the time is grace yourself. You've never been here before. None of us have ever been here. We've never needed this kind of healing. We've never desired this kind of healing. So you're learning new things every single day.
Yeah.
And embrace that.
Yeah. And I would just, embrace the journey, embrace it. Get excited. Like Chelsea would say, get excited about who God's turning you into and the person that he is, you know, sharpening through these trials. I mean, it definitely, I mean, I am not the same person that was before. I mean, I am, but I'm not. Like it's different. Like there's so much trust in the Lord because I of what he has brought me through. And the goodness of the Lord is all over my story, right? Where I thought, God is so not good in this. Like, why would he bring me through this? And then to look back over my journey and say, God is so good to use Adam and I for his glory. Like, who am I that he's chosen us? Like, he is good. And so embrace your journey. It might not look like what you want it to look like now, but it will. And it will. And it, you know, even for our friends who are listening who've lost loved ones, I know that there are people who have lost loved ones to this that can still look back on their journey and say, God is good. And that's, I can't imagine. That is not my journey. That is not my story. But I do know people that have that story and still think God is so good. And it's amazing to me that they still have that, God is good attitude, because it's hard. It's the ultimate loss, right? In this story, in this trap of addiction. So anyway, I think that there is different things in your life that you can cling on to into your journey of healing. Listening to people who've been there, to grab a hold of hope. That's why we do this podcast, right? To really lean into those people that are speaking truth and life into you. And we encourage you to be encouraged by this, right? This talk of healing, and your journey is your own. Finding those people at your church, really talking to them about your healing process, I think is going to be helpful. Having your own time with the Lord and just crying out to the Lord. If you're in the middle of just hurt, I think that finding your comfort in the Lord is going to be super key to you finding that healing in your healing journey. Forgiveness. I know Chelsea has a big story of forgiveness. I mean, obviously I had to forgive Adam for what he's done, you know, and did to us, right? But ultimately the forgiveness, I know your story just with your dad and John and everybody that, you know, your story is big on forgiveness. It's going to be huge in your healing journey. So.
I think that another one that I had just in the application of it is the sooner you're willing to get uncomfortable with healing, the sooner you're going to heal. And so you're responsible for your healing. Nobody else is. And you have a choice. If you choose not to heal and stay in the bitterness, it's going to be delayed, and it's a choice. And it can affect you for the rest of your life, because when bitterness sets root in your heart, it's hard to get out. And we have to try, and we have to work at that. You know, and you think, I've talked about on here before, but you know, when you get some kind of cut and you get staph infection, like they've got to cut it open. They've got to dig it out for it to heal. It's the same thing you got to do with your heart. Because when those it's a natural thing to have bitterness and resentful and anger. You know, anger is the iceberg to all these emotions that we feel. And so sometimes it takes getting in that wound, digging it out. Because if you let that wound cover with staph infection in there, it's never going to heal, ever. And so you have to get in there, get uncomfortable, face the emotions that you're feeling, and heal from them. Because you can't.
Talking to people, face it head on. So that, that you can.
And that's Jeremiah 30:17 says, God will restore health and heal wounds. And he does. Like, that's a promise in there. And he does when you allow it, when you're ready. It's easy to sit in the bitterness. It's easy to sit in the anger. And it may be anger towards a person. It may be anger towards God. It may be anger towards yourself. And so you have to choose healing. It's a choice. And it's important to do that. And feelings buried alive will never die. And healing is beautiful. It is beautiful when you allow it, when you accept it, and when you receive it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love watching the stories that come out of S2L alone of healing and redemption. And it's just so beautiful. I love it when we have like these big galas or concerts or whoever, and people, and even like the alumni weekends. I love seeing, you just like look out into the crowd and you just see so much hope and healing over all these families. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, even really when the stories don't end the way that we would hope.
Right. They still come out and they support. And it's just, it will literally take my breath away of how much God is so good in all of these stories. I know it's just so, it's so good. And your story is so hard, but it can be so good. And so we do hope that you have found some hope in this podcast today, that your story is not over, and there is so much healing that can be done. And so we hope that you found some hope in that. So thank you so much for listening. We hope that you have a great day, great week. We're looking forward to next week. If you find this on any of our social media platforms, make sure that you share, because that's how we get the word out and who we are. If you're finding this on YouTube or any of the podcasts, make sure you like and subscribe to any of our stuff. We're so thankful that you've joined us today. We hope that you are blessed, and we'll see you next week. Bye.